First speaker is David Kirp. David is a professor of public policy at Berkeley's Richard and Rhoda Goldman Graduate School of Public Policy. He is a former newspaper editor and acting dean of the Goldman School of Public Policy in the late 1990s. He is the author of Shakespeare, Einstein, and the Bottom Line, The Marketing of Higher Education, and The Sandbox Investment, The Preschool Movement, and Kids First Politics. His current project, the Kids First Agenda, expands the scope of his interest in the lives of children. David came tonight despite the fact that he is sick, so I hope you will be very understanding that when he finishes, he is going to exit stage right.
Thanks, Louise, and thanks for giving my speech. I think I'll now sit down and we'll save all that time. Actually, you did give a lot of the speech.
I have your computer.
There you go. I knew this university was bugged, but little did I know how bugged. It's great to be here at this kickoff event. And I want to echo some of the things that Louise has said. One of them is how important it is that tomorrow's rally in Sacramento is both about K through 12, the public schools, and about higher education. Because we really are all together now. And that, politically, is the only way we're going to succeed. Because our political fates are really intertwined. We're in it together. If we stay together, we have more clout. Politicians have to pay more attention. And you get this at the personal level. Most of you, I'm guessing, are products of California public schools, and now you're at UC. So you have a firsthand experience of what's happened and what's happening. Many of you have younger brothers and sisters coming up through the schools. You can see what their schooling is going to be like. It's going to be worse than yours. And that's something that ought to motivate you as well. So very briefly, with Louise diligently keeping time, I want to talk about where we are now, how we got here, and how we might begin to get out of this mess, all in about 10 minutes. So let me just reference the point that Louise made about where we are now. Really at the bottom of the heap in education. You know, it used to be that people would joke about Mississippi. There's California, there's Mississippi. Now, we're fighting it out with Mississippi, or 46th place. And if you actually look at the amount of money we spend on public education as a function of the wealth of the state, we are dead last. If you look at other big states, Illinois, Michigan, New York, New Jersey, they all spend a lot more than we do, a third to a half more than we do on public education. If you look at what does that mean, it means that we've got the biggest class sizes in public schools of any state in the country. We also have some of the shabbiest looking schools and schools in least repair. And those of you who've grown up here probably aren't going to appreciate this, but go elsewhere in the country and see what the contrast is like, and you'll realize that in a lot of ways we're slipping into the status of the developing world. Where we're almost at the bottom, amazingly, is in terms of the access that school kids have to computers. Now, how amazing is that? There's Silicon Valley down the road. There's Hollywood with all the high-tech wizardry that we've got. And you've got a computer for about every 6 or 7 kids, as opposed to every 2 or 3 kids in many states. And all of that stuff matters in terms of how students are doing in school. There's one national test of reading and math ability, and I don't want to fetishize how important those subjects are, or and slight others, but that's the only measure that we've got that cuts across the states. Californians are below average, 4th grade reading, 4th grade math, 8th grade reading and 8th grade math. Where we do excel is in our dropout rate. It is the highest in the nation. We're about to have another round of cutbacks. They will make things worse. There's another round of teacher layoffs. San Francisco just announced it wasn't going to have summer school. And that bites, and it bites particularly for poor kids. Because if you look at the data on schooling, poor kids and middle-class kids do about the same level of work during the school year. Where poor kids fall behind is in the summer because they've got nothing to do. And the fact that there are now no opportunities, that San Francisco, fabulously liberal San Francisco, has shut the doors of summer schools, tells you something about what the future is going to look like. For some years, wealthy enclaves, the Arindas, the Palo Altos, could sort of buy their way out of this because parents could raise a ton of money through private foundations to support all the activities the state wasn't supporting. That's not going to be true anymore. Palo Alto and, the barrio are going to be facing classes of 30 and 35 kids per student. So that's K-12. Higher education, you know a whole lot better in terms of where we are. And the story in some ways is very much the same. In 1960, the state adopted something called the Master Plan for Higher Education. It was the envy of the world. This was a state that people came to visit from around the world because it represented public education at its best. And amazingly, it still precariously holds to that position. To call the UC system the best in the world is not California chauvinism. Other states have one, maybe two world-class universities. 5 of the 10 universities in the UC system are ranked among the top 50 research universities in the world. 5 out of 50. Pretty astonishing. Well, back then, there was a tacit bargain between the state and the university. And the bargain went like this. The University of California says, we're going to provide a really world-class education for the best of the state students. We're going to do cutting-edge research, and we're going to serve the public and serve the community, in exchange for which, said the state, we're going to keep tuition low and make it possible for you to participate. That's history, as you know. And we are now the state that spends, the only state in the country that spends more on prisons than on higher education. So what was this great model of the multiversity, this great institution, and still is in a lot of ways, fabulous research program, a third of this, and great access. A third of the students, a third of you are coming from families whose incomes are $40,000, $45,000, eligible for Pell Grants. There are more Pell Grant students at Berkeley than in all the Ivy League universities combined. Professors stick around despite getting lower salaries. Graduate students come here despite getting better offers elsewhere. How long can that continue? With a faculty furlough, i.e. pay cuts, and little research support, where are faculty going to go? With students having to pay higher fees, where are they going to go? How do we get here? Louise described some of how we got here. But I want to emphasize that the voters, your parents and grandparents, are really key to the story. Not only did they cut property taxes, they set the rules that say that California has to have a 2/3 majority before it passes its budget, 2/3 majority before it passes new taxes. That has meant gridlock that makes Washington look like paradise. There is no reconciliation approach available. And term limits for legislators mean that nobody has a clue as to what to do. So very briefly, what's to be done? Our task is to convince the lawmakers and ultimately the voters of something that we take for granted, that education really matters, that it's the future not only of us, but of the state, and because of the size of the state, of the country as well. Sacramento is important. It's dramatic. But what's going to happen on March 5th when all of the cameras go away? Where are you going to be? One day is not going to be enough to begin what really is a movement that has to be seen as the move on for education. It's really worth your investing your time and energy. You've got the talent. And as I say, there really are few issues that matter more, because it's It's the state's future, it's the country's future, it's your future, it's your brothers and sisters' future that depend on our succeeding. Thank you.